Welcome to Read Alchemy. Today, we are going to learn English through a story, but this is not just a story. I want you to imagine that everything you hear is happening to you. Listen carefully. Pay attention to the vocabulary, and when you hear the shadowing practice, speak along naturally. Let's begin. I woke up because I could hear rain hitting my window. At first, I didn't want to get out of bed. The sound of the rain was quiet and relaxing. I looked at my phone and checked the time. Then I suddenly sat up. I was late. I had planned to wake up at 7 o'clock, but I had slept for almost another hour. I quickly got out of bed. I walked to the window and looked outside. The sky was dark and cloudy. It was raining heavily. The streets were already wet. People were walking quickly with umbrellas. Some cars were moving slowly because of the rain. I checked the weather forecast on my phone. The forecast said that the rain would continue for most of the morning. A forecast is a prediction about the weather. For example, the weather forecast says it will rain tomorrow. I looked at the time again. I didn't have much time. I had to leave the house soon. I quickly took a shower and got dressed. Normally, I like to take my time in the morning. But that morning, I had to hurry. To hurry means to do something quickly because you don't have much time. For example, I have to hurry or I'll miss the bus. I put on my jeans, a shirt, and my jacket. Then I looked outside again. I wondered if I should take my umbrella. I found it near the door. It was an old black umbrella. One of the metal parts was slightly broken, but it still worked. I picked it up and put it in my bag. I also put on my shoes. Then I realized that my shoes were not very good for rainy weather. They were comfortable, but they were made of thin material. I looked at them and thought, I hope my feet don't get wet. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I checked my phone, my wallet, and my keys. Everything was there. I opened the door. Cold air came into the house. I could hear the rain more clearly now. It was falling heavily on the street. I took a deep breath and stepped outside. The first few drops of rain hit my jacket. I opened my umbrella. Then I started walking toward the bus stop. I wasn't too worried yet. I thought I would arrive on time. But I didn't know that this was only the beginning of my difficult morning. As I walked, I noticed that the wind was getting stronger. My umbrella moved from side to side. I held it tightly. A few people were walking around me. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Cars were passing on the wet road. Water was splashing onto the sidewalk. I tried to avoid the puddles. A puddle is a small area of water that collects on the ground, especially after rain. I saw a large puddle in front of me. I stepped around it carefully. Then I looked at my watch. I was already later than I expected. I started walking faster. I was in a hurry now, but as I got closer to the bus stop, I noticed something strange. There were many people waiting there, much more than usual. I slowed down. Something was wrong. I looked down the road. There was no bus. I checked the time again. 5 minutes passed, then 10 minutes, still no bus. I started to worry. Maybe the rain had caused a delay. A delay means something happens later than expected. For example, the train was delayed because of the bad weather. I looked at the people around me. Some were checking their phones. Others were looking down the road. Nobody seemed happy. I pulled my jacket closer and waited. The rain continued to fall, and suddenly I realized something. I had forgotten something important at home, but what had I forgotten? Let's pause the story here. Before we continue, let's learn some useful expressions from what just happened. I was late. Use this when you arrive or need to arrive later than the planned time. I had to hurry. Use this when you need to move or act quickly. I didn't have much time. This is a very useful everyday expression. I started to worry. Use this when you gradually become concerned about something. Something was wrong. Use this when a situation does not seem normal or correct. Now let's practice shadowing. Listen to each sentence and speak naturally. I woke up because I could hear rain. I looked at my phone and checked the time. I suddenly realized that I was late. The sky was dark and cloudy. It was raining heavily. I didn't have much time. I had to hurry. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. I opened my umbrella and stepped outside. The wind was getting stronger. I started walking faster. I was already later than I expected. I started to worry. Something was wrong. Excellent. Now let's review today's important vocabulary. Rainy means having a lot of rain. Cloudy means the sky is covered with clouds. Forecast means a prediction about future weather. Hurry means to move or act quickly. Umbrella is something you use to protect yourself from rain. Puddle is a small amount of water on the ground. Delay means something happens later than expected. And worried means feeling nervous or concerned about something. Now try to create your own sentences with these words. You can say, the weather is rainy today. The sky is cloudy. The forecast says it will rain. I need to hurry. I forgot my umbrella. There's a big puddle outside. The bus is delayed, and I'm worried about being late. You don't need complicated sentences. Simple sentences are excellent practice, and remember the story. I woke up late. It was raining. I got ready quickly. I took my umbrella. I walked to the bus stop, but the bus was delayed. And now I had realized that I had forgotten something important. What did I forget? We will find out in the next chapter. Keep listening, keep shadowing, and most importantly, imagine that you are the person in the story. Let's continue our story. Remember where we stopped. I was standing at the bus stop. It was raining heavily. The bus was already late, and I had just realized that I had forgotten something important. I looked inside my bag. I checked every pocket. My wallet was there. My phone was there. My keys were there, but something was missing. Then I remembered. I had forgotten my lunch. I had prepared it the night before. I had put it in the refrigerator, but I had left it there. I looked at the time. I couldn't go back home. If I went back, I would definitely be late, so I decided to stay at the bus stop. I tried not to worry, but the rain was getting heavier. The wind was also getting stronger. My umbrella was shaking in the wind. I held it with both hands. A few minutes later, water started running down my jacket. My shoes were getting wet too. I looked at my feet. The thin material of my shoes was not protecting me very well. My socks were already a little wet. I sighed. What a morning, I said quietly. What a morning is a useful expression when something is going badly or unexpectedly. For example, you missed the bus, forgot your wallet, and now it's raining. What a morning. I looked down the road again. Still no bus. People were beginning to look frustrated. Frustrated means annoyed or upset because something is not going the way you want. One man checked his phone again and again. A woman called someone and told them she would be late. A student stood under a small roof trying to stay dry. I looked at my phone. I was becoming worried. I had an important meeting that morning. I couldn't afford to be late. To afford can mean having enough time, money, or ability for something. For example, I can't afford to miss this meeting. I can't afford to waste time. I checked the bus application on my phone. Finally, I saw an update. The bus was delayed because of heavy traffic. Traffic was moving very slowly because of the rain. A traffic jam happens when there are too many vehicles on the road and they cannot move normally. I looked at the road. There were cars everywhere. Some cars were barely moving. Water was splashing from their tires. I realized I couldn't wait much longer. I needed another plan. This is a very useful expression. I need another plan. You can use it when your first plan doesn't work. For example, the bus isn't coming, so I need another plan. I can't take the train, so I need another plan. I forgot my ticket, so I need another plan. I opened the map on my phone. There was a small train station about 15 minutes away. If I walked quickly, I could probably reach it, but there was a problem. It was still raining heavily. I looked at my umbrella, then I looked at the road. I took a deep breath. Okay, I said to myself. I'll walk. I started walking. At first, everything seemed fine. I held my umbrella tightly and walked along the sidewalk. I tried to avoid the puddles, but after a few minutes, the rain became even heavier. The wind pushed my umbrella backward. I tried to hold it steady. Then suddenly, I heard a loud sound. My umbrella turned inside out. I stopped walking. I looked at it in disbelief. The umbrella was completely useless. Inside out means the normal inside part of something has turned toward the outside. I tried to fix it. I pushed the metal frame back into place. It didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. I started laughing, not because it was funny. I was just tired of everything going wrong. My hair was getting wet. My jacket was wet. My shoes were wet. My umbrella was broken, and I still had to reach the train station. I put the broken umbrella into my bag, then I started walking faster. The rain fell directly on my head. I could feel cold water running down my face. I wiped my face with my hand. Then I noticed something ahead. There was a small coffee shop on the other side of the street. I stopped. I thought about going inside. I could dry myself. I could buy a coffee, and maybe I could ask someone about the train station. I looked at the time. I still had a little time, so I crossed the street and opened the door. A warm wave of air came toward me. For the first time that morning, I felt a little better. I stepped inside. The smell of coffee filled the room. I looked around. There were only a few people inside. I took off my wet jacket. Then I noticed that someone was sitting near the window. They were looking at me. A few seconds later, they stood up, and they walked toward me. I had no idea who they were, but they were about to help me with a problem I hadn't even noticed yet. Before we continue, let's learn some useful vocabulary from today's story. Frustrated means annoyed because something is not going the way you want. Traffic means the vehicles using roads. Traffic jam means heavy traffic where vehicles move very slowly. Afford means to have enough time, money, or ability for something. Steady means stable and not moving too much. Inside out means something has been turned so that its inner side is outside. Broken means damaged and no longer working correctly. Wet means covered with water. Now let's practice some useful expressions. I can't go back home. I don't have much time. I need another plan. I can't afford to be late. The traffic is terrible. My shoes are getting wet. My umbrella is broken. I don't know what to do. Maybe I should ask for help. Let's shadow them naturally. I forgot my lunch at home. I couldn't go back. The bus was delayed. The rain was getting heavier. I was starting to get frustrated. I needed another plan. I decided to walk to the train station. The wind was getting stronger. My umbrella turned inside out. I tried to fix it, but it didn't work. I was completely wet. Then I saw a small coffee shop. I decided to go inside. For the first time that morning, I felt a little better. Excellent. Now think about the story from the beginning. I woke up late. It was raining heavily. I forgot my lunch. The bus was delayed. My shoes got wet. My umbrella broke. And now I was standing inside a small coffee shop, wondering what I should do next. Sometimes a simple day can become unexpectedly difficult. But when something goes wrong, there is always a possibility of finding another solution. And sometimes, asking for help is the best solution. In the next chapter, we will find out who the person in the coffee shop was and why they decided to help me. Keep listening, keep learning, and imagine that you are right there with me. Let's continue the story. I was standing inside the small coffee shop. My clothes were wet. My shoes were soaked, and my umbrella was completely broken, but at least I was warm. I walked toward the counter and looked at the menu. I wasn't really hungry. I just wanted to dry off and think about what to do next. To dry off means to remove water from yourself or something. For example, I need to dry off after walking in the rain. I took a deep breath. Then I heard someone behind me. Excuse me. I turned around. It was the person I had noticed near the window. He was holding a small towel. You look like you need this, he said. I smiled. Thank you. I took the towel and started drying my face and hair. I've had a terrible morning, I said. He smiled. I think everyone has had a terrible morning today. I laughed. That was exactly how I felt. I looked outside. The rain was still falling heavily. I need to get to the train station. I explained. Do you know how I can get there? He pointed toward the street. You can walk, but it's not very far. I was going to walk, I said, but my umbrella broke. He looked at my umbrella. Yes, I can see that. We both laughed. Then he said something that surprised me. If you don't mind waiting, I can give you a ride. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't know this person, so I asked, Are you sure? Of course, he said. I'm going to the same area. I thought about it for a moment. Then I checked my phone. I still had enough time to reach my meeting. That would be very helpful, I said. Thank you. No problem. This is an important expression. No problem is a common way to say that something is not difficult or that you are happy to help. You can also say, of course. Sure, that's okay. You're welcome. These expressions are useful when someone asks for help or thanks you. I ordered a hot coffee while we waited for the rain to become lighter. The person introduced himself. We started talking. He asked me where I worked. I told him. Then he asked, Do you usually take the bus? Yes, I said, but today everything has gone wrong. He laughed. Sometimes that's how life is. I looked at my coffee. The warmth of the cup felt good in my hands. I was finally relaxing. Then he asked me another question. Are you nervous about your meeting? I paused. Yes, a little. Why? Because I have to give a short presentation. A presentation? Yes. And you're worried about your English? I was surprised. How did you know? He smiled. You've been checking your phone every 30 seconds. I laughed. He was right. I had been worrying about being late, but I had also been worrying about my English. I was afraid that I would make a mistake during the presentation. I told him about my fear. He listened carefully. Then he said, Don't worry about speaking perfect English. I looked at him. Just make sure people understand your message. That sentence stayed in my mind. It sounded simple, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. I had spent so much time worrying about mistakes that I had forgotten the purpose of speaking. Communication. The goal was not to sound perfect. The goal was to communicate my ideas clearly. Message can mean the main idea or information you want to communicate. For example, what is the main message of your presentation? The message is simple. I started thinking about my presentation differently. Maybe I didn't need complicated words. Maybe I didn't need perfect sentences. Maybe I just needed to explain my ideas clearly. The rain became lighter. We finished our coffee. Then we walked outside. His car was parked nearby. I got inside. For the first few minutes, we didn't talk much. I looked through my presentation on my phone. I noticed several sentences that were too complicated. I changed them. I replaced difficult words with simple ones. Instead of, I would like to provide a comprehensive explanation, I changed it to, I'd like to explain this clearly. The meaning was almost the same, but the second sentence felt much easier to say. Comprehensive means complete and covering many details. It is a useful word, but it isn't always necessary. Sometimes simple is better. We continued driving. The traffic was still heavy, but I wasn't as nervous anymore. I felt relieved. Relieved means feeling relaxed because something difficult or worrying has become better. For example, I was relieved when the bus finally arrived. I felt relieved after finishing my presentation. I looked outside the window. The rain was slowly becoming lighter. The dark clouds were beginning to move away, and I realized something. The morning had been terrible, but it had also taught me something important. I didn't need perfect conditions to have a good day, and I didn't need perfect English to communicate. Before we continue to the final part, let's learn today's vocabulary. Soaked means completely wet. Dry off means to remove water from yourself. Helpful means willing or able to help. Presentation means a talk in which you explain something to other people. Message means the main idea you want to communicate. Comprehensive means complete and including many details. Relieved means relaxed after a worry or problem has ended. And clearly means in a way that is easy to understand. Now let's practice some useful expressions from the story. I've had a terrible morning. Do you know how I can get there? Are you sure? That would be very helpful. Thank you for your help. No problem. I'm a little nervous. I'm worried about making mistakes. I just want people to understand my message. I don't need perfect English. I need to communicate clearly. Now let's shadow the story. I walked into a small coffee shop. My clothes were wet. My shoes were soaked. My umbrella was completely broken. Someone offered to help me. I thanked him. I explained what had happened. He listened carefully. Then he gave me some simple advice. Don't worry about speaking perfect English. Just make sure people understand your message. That advice changed the way I thought about my presentation. I didn't need complicated words. I needed clear ideas. I didn't need perfect sentences. I needed confidence. Excellent. Now think about what happened. I started the morning feeling rushed. Then I became frustrated. My bus was delayed. My umbrella broke. I got completely wet, but then I met someone who helped me. More importantly, he reminded me of something I had forgotten. English is a tool for communication. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be useful. And sometimes the simplest sentence is the best sentence. In the final chapter, I will finally reach my destination. But the day still has one more lesson for me, and that lesson will help me understand why the difficult morning was actually worth experiencing. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep speaking. After a difficult and rainy morning, I was finally sitting in the car. The rain was getting lighter. The traffic was still heavy, but we were moving. I looked at the time. I had only 15 minutes before my meeting. For the first time that morning, I felt calm. I opened my presentation on my phone. I read through it one more time. Some sentences still sounded too complicated, so I simplified them. To simplify means to make something easier to understand or do. For example, I simplified my presentation. I simplified the sentence. I simplified my daily routine. I looked at one sentence and changed it. Instead of saying, "Today, I would like to provide a comprehensive overview of our recent results," I changed it to, "Today, I'd like to explain our recent results." The new sentence was shorter. It was easier to remember, and it was easier to say. I realized that I had been making English harder than it needed to be. The person driving the car noticed that I was editing my presentation. "Are you feeling better?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I think so." Then I smiled. I was worried about speaking, but now I feel more prepared. "That's good," he said. "Just take your time." Take your time is a very useful expression. It means you don't need to hurry. For example, take your time, there's no rush. You can take your time and think about your answer. I looked out of the window. The rain had almost stopped. The roads were still wet. Small puddles covered the sidewalks. People were walking with umbrellas. Some cars were slowly moving through the traffic. The sky was still gray, but I could see a little sunlight behind the clouds. It felt like the morning was finally changing. A few minutes later, we arrived. I thanked him for helping me. "Thank you so much. You really helped me today." He smiled. "You're welcome." I got out of the car. I looked at my shoes. They were still wet. My jacket was still damp. Damp means slightly wet. My umbrella was still broken, but I didn't care anymore. I walked into the building. I checked the time. I had arrived just a few minutes before the meeting. I took a deep breath. Then I walked into the room. There were several people sitting around the table. I felt nervous again, but this time I didn't panic. I reminded myself of what I had learned that morning. I didn't need perfect English. I needed to communicate clearly. The meeting started. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up. I looked at everyone, then I began. Good morning. Today, I'd like to explain our recent results. My voice was a little shaky at first, but I continued. I explained the first point, then the second, then the third. I made a small grammar mistake. I noticed it. I corrected myself, and I continued. Nobody laughed. Nobody stopped me. Everyone understood what I was saying. When I finished, one of my colleagues smiled. That was clear, she said. I sat down. I felt relieved. I had done it, not perfectly, but successfully, and that was enough. Successfully means in a way that achieves the desired result. I had spent so much time worrying about making mistakes, but the mistake itself wasn't the problem. The real problem was my fear of making the mistake. Once I stopped worrying about perfection, I could focus on communication. After the meeting, I walked outside. The rain had completely stopped. The clouds were beginning to disappear. The streets were still wet, but the sunlight was becoming stronger. I thought about the morning. I had woken up late. I had forgotten my lunch. The bus had been delayed. My shoes had become wet. My umbrella had broken. I had become frustrated. But then someone helped me, and that person had reminded me of something important. Sometimes a difficult experience can teach you something valuable. Experience means something that happens to you and gives you knowledge or understanding. That morning was a difficult experience, but I learned from it. I learned that problems don't always need perfect solutions. Sometimes you simply need another plan. I learned that asking for help is not a weakness. It is a practical skill. I learned that simple English can be powerful. And most importantly, I learned that communication is more important than perfection. Let's practice some vocabulary from today's story. Simplify means to make something easier. Prepared means ready for something. Damp means slightly wet. Shaky means moving or sounding slightly unsteady because of nervousness or weakness. Successfully means achieving the result you wanted. Experience means something that happens to you and teaches you something. Valuable means useful or important. And perfection means the condition of being completely perfect. Now let's practice some useful expressions. Take your time. There's no rush. I feel more prepared now. I don't need perfect English. I need to communicate clearly. I made a small mistake. Let me correct that. Thank you for your help. That was a difficult experience. I learned something valuable. Now let's shadow the final part of the story. I finally arrived at my destination. I was nervous, but I stayed calm. I reminded myself that I didn't need perfect English. I just needed to communicate clearly. I started my presentation. I made a small mistake. I corrected myself and continued. Nobody laughed. Everyone understood me. When I finished, I felt relieved. I had done it, not perfectly, but successfully. I realized that my fear had been bigger than the actual problem. I didn't need to be perfect. I needed to keep going. Excellent. Now let's quickly retell the story. I woke up late on a rainy morning. I had to hurry. I forgot my lunch at home. The bus was delayed. The rain became heavier. My umbrella broke. I got completely wet. Then I found a small coffee shop. Someone offered to help me. We talked about my presentation. He reminded me that clear communication was more important than perfect English. I reached my destination. I gave my presentation. I made a small mistake, but I continued. Everything went well. And at the end of the day, I learned something important. Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes your plans fail. Sometimes you make mistakes, but you can always try another approach. You can ask for help. You can simplify the problem, and you can continue. That is also how you should learn English. You will forget words. You will make grammar mistakes. You will sometimes feel nervous. You may not understand everything. That's okay. Don't stop. Find another way to express your idea. Ask for clarification. Use simpler words. Try again and keep communicating. Because English is not a test you have to pass perfectly. It is a skill you develop through use. The more you listen, the more you understand. The more you shadow, the more natural your pronunciation becomes. The more you speak, the easier it becomes to find your words. And the more mistakes you make and learn from, the more confident you become. So the next time something goes wrong, remember my rainy morning. Maybe you forgot a word. Maybe you made a grammar mistake. Maybe you couldn't understand someone. Don't panic. Take your time. Try again. Explain it another way and keep going. Because sometimes a difficult day can teach you the most valuable lesson. Thank you for learning with me today. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep speaking English. So that was quite a morning. I woke up late, walked through the rain, missed my bus, broke my umbrella, and somehow still made it to my meeting. But while we were following the story, we also learned a lot of useful English. Let's quickly look back at some of the words you heard. When I said the sky was cloudy, it meant there were many clouds in the sky. And when I checked the weather forecast, I was checking the prediction for the weather. Because I was late, I had to hurry. And when I reached the bus stop, there was a delay. The bus was later than expected. Then things got worse. My shoes became soaked. That means they became completely wet. I also became frustrated because nothing was going according to plan. When something doesn't happen the way you expect, you can say, "I'm getting frustrated." But I didn't give up. I realized I needed another plan. That's a very useful expression in everyday English. If your first plan doesn't work, you can say, "I need another plan." Then I found the coffee shop. Someone was very helpful and offered me a ride. I was relieved because I finally had a way to reach my meeting. Relieved is a useful word when a difficult situation becomes better. For example, I was relieved when I arrived on time. Later, during my presentation, I remembered something important. I didn't need complicated English. I needed to communicate clearly. So I simplified some of my sentences. To simplify something means to make it easier. And even though I made a small mistake, I still finished my presentation successfully. Looking back, that rainy morning was actually a valuable experience. An experience is something that happens to you and gives you knowledge or teaches you something. So let's quickly remember the most useful words from today's story. Cloudy, forecast, hurry, delay, soaked, frustrated, helpful, relieved, presentation, simplify, successfully, experience, and valuable. You don't need to memorize all of them right now. Choose 3 or 4 that you think you could use in your own life. Maybe, "I'm running late, so I have to hurry. The train was delayed. I was relieved when I got home. I had a valuable experience." Try using them in your own sentences. That's how the vocabulary from today's story becomes your English. And now you know the story, you know the words, you know the expressions. The only thing left is to use them. Great job today. Keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next story.